This is almost like a war story thing, you know, sort of like what I do on Thursday. It's electrical test 12, but it's basically going over an article I wrote called Blazing New Trails. And the reason I said that was because a lot of the times whenever we're working on something, we like to use Identifix and we like to use technical service bulletins and stuff, because if the information has already been ferreted out for us, and having to dig from scratch and find the stuff that somebody else has already found is, let me see. Okay. Yeah, put that out on my desk there, Sharon, if you don't mind. Is really a sort of a pain. It takes a while longer, and like for instance, I used to have people at the shop where I worked over there that would always want to come and find somebody else that had already located the problem in a particular kind of vehicle. So you ever run across this, or have you ever done this, have you ever seen it? And if you hadn't seen it, they were disappointed, because that would mean they were going to have to figure it out their own self. Okay, so occasionally, I used to get phone calls from all over town, and I'd get phone calls from other cities, and one time I got a phone call from Africa. This guy trying to get me help him get a Jeep started, and I couldn't understand anything his Italian mechanics were saying, so I had to basically filter everything through them. But we got the Jeep started, and it was on the other side of the planet. Well, there's people out there that want it to be indispensable, and they don't want to share any of their knowledge, but they're not doing themselves any favors, because what goes around comes around, you know, basically. And you know, you'll find the guys out there that you're working with that are really good at what they do, and they won't tell you nothing. They just want you to flounder around. And that's insecurity, is what it is. Everybody wants to be, you know. But technical service bulletins are written and published around the idea that shared information expedites repairs, and they're published by the manufacturers. The manufacturer's idea is, when these guys are working on these cars under warranty, if we can tell them real quick how to find it, then we don't have to pay for as many bad parts that they change, good parts they changed that weren't bad, and all this kind of thing. Furthermore, it expedites repairs. The car gets in and out of the shop quicker with a minimal amount of trouble. The customer likes the car better, and there's nothing that gives a car a black eye like being in the shop for 3 weeks and they can't figure out what's wrong with it. You know what I mean? So, some of the repair work we do, though, is fairly simple. You know, doesn't take rocket scientists to replace spark plugs, brake shoes, belts, but it does take technicians with skill, experience, and aptitude to maintain the 21st century vehicles. They got to have energy. You got to be able to have somebody that's going to be dependable, that's going to be there, that's going to do the work when you tell them to. That, you know, even in shops where people are getting paid by the job, there are some guys that just stand around for some reason or another. I don't know. They're the ones crying because they ain't got no paycheck at the end of the week. Boss man don't like that. He send them on their way. But some problems pop up occasionally that'll smack you around. And they generate phone calls and emails, and people will say, I can't figure this out, can you help me? There was this one shop over there that I knew about in that town where I used to work. And they started working on Power Stroke diesels, and they managed to fix a few of them really pretty simply. And so I said, well, I think that we've got these things down pat now. And so they fixed 3 or 4 of them, made pretty good profit margin on it. They didn't totally understand them. And then they got one that they hung into, and they spent $4,000 replacing parts on that thing, and still didn't know what was wrong with it. I mean, that one wiped out all the profit they made on the other. The customer was ticked off because now there's a huge bill, and they didn't, you know, they were really over their heads on that. And they didn't have any training on it, you know. This month's story here, the one I was talking about here, is a 2000 F-250 with an ABS light problem. Okay, simple enough. Comes in, ABS lights on. Got it? All right, the line technician that worked on it first specializes in engines, manual transmissions, differentials. Just noticed the ABS lamp and an operative speedometer. So he had put some components in the rear end to include the differential speed sensor, which, you know, fails all the time on those older Fords. The ABS lamp had been illuminated when he first drew the ticket, and when he was done with his grease and steel, the ABS speedo problem was still there. He figured maybe the differential speed sensor would fix it, but it didn't. Well, I drew the repair order, and the ABS light was shining really bright, and the speedometer needle was just as dead as anything. It wouldn't show nothing. And my research, I would look after TSBs, didn't find anything, and I tracked it on more than one occasion to find bad ABS modules. One of the things that used to tick me off, this boy that I trained would always want to fault the module to start with, you know, and I say, you don't do that. If you throw an electronic box at one, that's probably not going to be what's wrong with it. Hey, there, right there. Derek cried because he ran into that. But anyway, you throw a box at it, and you're thinking, well, this is the easiest way to plug in another box. Now, you and I fixed that Lincoln. They had the airbag problem, air suspension. That did turn out to be a box. Got it? You remember that? But we had to track it first. We didn't just throw a box at it. What did we do? We found out it was reading 8 volts and it was actually receiving 12. And since it was reading 8 volts, it wasn't doing nothing. So whenever we put another box on there, it was reading 12 and it started working. That was fairly straightforward little repair there.
We bypassed it to make sure that the solenoid thing or whatever, bypassed it, put voltage to it directly, and it would affect based on how we put the power and ground to it. It would lower it and raise it.
Yeah, we actually took we actually put ourselves in the position of the module and did everything that it was supposed to do. And when we found out that all of that stuff worked, now we're looking back at the box again because it's getting all the necessary inputs and the right voltage and it's got the good output, pathways, but nothing's happening. So that's basically how we're going to troubleshoot that. Well, the 4-wheel anti-lock brake module was mounted on the hydraulic control unit right behind and below the driver's side headlamp on this F-250. Kind of hard to get to, but it gets the differential speed sensor signal from the rear axle. Okay, so let's look at that for a second. Differential speed signal it's got this ring on the rear axle gear, and it's got a sensor, and it's got 2 wires, and it goes to the ABS module, right? That's as simple as pie, right? Okay, now the ABS module is basically receiving that thing, and it's using ISO protocol through the data communication link on pin number 7, which is a blue wire with a white stripe on most of them. And it shares the ISO network bus with 3 other modules on this F-250. Restraint control module, which is your airbag stuff, boom on the steering wheel. The generic electronic module, which is kind of like the body computer on a Ford. And the overhead console module, which is called overhead trip computer on the Excursion. And the Excursion's also got a parking aid module. This one don't have. All right, using the WDS, which is what I was using in those days, I worked my way through the opening program to the point where a network test is done. Now, a lot of these new scan tools will do a network test. And what you do there, listen to this. You go in there and you tell it, I want to check everything. I want to see which modules will talk. I want to see which modules won't. I want to see what codes are stored in the modules that are talking. And you just basically tell it to do this and you go get a cup of coffee or something because it's going to take a little bit. All right, the new scan tool that I just bought, the Autel one, it'll do that, and the Genesis will do that. The little scan tool, the Nemesis won't, and all that, but most of your higher end scan tools will do that. Okay, so let's say that you have ABS, and you tell it to go check, and it goes zing, 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 and it says, I don't have this, I don't have this, I do have this, I do have this, I got East Coast stored. Well, it comes to a place where it says, I don't have an ABS module, it's telling me nothing. Now I got an ABS light on, I know I got ABS module's not telling me anything. So now I got to go find out why the ABS module's not talking, right? Okay, so no computer will work though if it's not powered up. That's the whole thing. So it's a good idea to check fuses to start with, right? And when I was checking the border, teaching the border control I went out there to El Paso, Texas, and I taught the border patrol mechanics out there some electronic diesel stuff. And this has been years ago, half a dozen years ago or something. And it's the only time I ever did a presentation standing behind a podium that said Homeland Security. But anyway, these guys had told me, they said, well, the guy that was running that shop, he said that we had put some radios and stuff in one of those doggone things, one of those vehicles, Suburban or something. And who's out there? Somebody want to talk to me? Hey, come here, girl. Yay.
I think something new messes up every week.
Yeah, what's wrong?
When I turn, there's like a knocking noise, and my daddy said it
CV axle?
yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just going
Do you have
leave
money?
it out there.
Do you have money?
No, I'll probably wait till Thursday then.
Okay, well, we'll drive it and see what we hear, and then we'll plan on it.
Thank you. Well, here's my
Huh?
keys.
Oh, yeah, well, I need those.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, now then, so I connected to Worldwide Diagnostic System. Oh, I started to tell you that story. That guy said after the ABS light was on, after they worked on it, right? After they put radios in it and lights on the top for the Border Patrol and all that. And so they noticed the ABS light was on, so they took it back to the GM dealership. And the GM dealership spent 2 days doing a bunch of diagnostics on it. And what happened was they said, well, our problem that we have here is that we had to move a fuse from one place to another where your guys plugged it in the wrong place, and they wanted to charge him $1,700 labor for doing all the diagnostics that led to that. And I said, well, wait a minute. He was going to fuss at his mechanics about it, because they're like 25 border patrolmen. I said, you didn't owe that dealership $1,700 for that. I mean, I don't care who moved that fuse. If the mechanic that was working on it didn't know enough to put the fuse, check the fuse to start with, that's on him. I don't know, he probably went ahead and paid it because it was government money anyway. But the fact was, a lot of these places want to do something like that, But anyway, all right, now I'm going to move a little quicker here. Okay, following the schematic from the ABS connector back toward the power source, I found out circuit 533 traveled through the bulkhead connector. So you track the thing. What you do is you find out how it gets power, which connectors it goes through, where they are, and all that. And I just kept on working. Found the pinout chart in the shop manual, which tells you which pin that connector goes through, which number it is, and all that kind of thing. And so basically what I went down there and found was that there was no power there, basically. And the junction box on these things, whenever it would rain and some of the windshield, the base of the windshield would leak a little bit, just a little few drops, and it would drip on that junction box over a while. And and that particular one caused some problems. What I basically did was, the pin that wasn't powered up, I powered it up artificially with a jumper, and you could actually, catch it that way. All right, now you got a handout on this. You can basically go through on that, but we're going to look at these questions here next. All right, anybody got any questions about what I was just talking about? You've done this before, right? You know how I'm always telling you whenever you're doing electrical stuff, and this is an electrical class, whenever you know something's supposed to be powered up, what is the first thing you do? You're actually going to find out where the power comes from, how it gets there, what connectors it goes through, and then you're going to go to each connector, so that whenever you disconnect the connectors and you can put your, go to the particular pin using wire color and connector cavity and all that. All right, the first question that we got right here, and you can, like I say, you can read through that handout whenever you get a chance. The ABS module communicates using ISO protocol through the DCL, and it can share the network bus with how many other modules? I told you that a while ago. Remember in the little talk? Three other modules. Remember which ones they were? GEM module, RAP module, remember those? Those are the ones they talked about? Okay, a communication problem with the particular module can be a result of what? A bent male or spread female connector. B, a module is not powered up. C, a shorted wire, or any of the above.
D.
Was that? D,
all of the above.
Yeah, it can be that. Okay, so technician A says a bad connection at connector C21045, and I can show you. Well, look on your handout. You got that. You got a schematic there. You're going to find that one particular schematic there. C1045 can cause the speed signal to be intermittent, or C222 might cause it not to work. All right, now what are you seeing on that? You see it?
That's that one that's down there, the bottom left kind of, the connector.
Yeah, in other words, you're going to look at the schematic. The schematic you're looking at, that's ABS schematic 1. See that schematic down there?
Right here.
Yeah, the very bottom one. The very bottom of the big one that's on the very bottom. That's what we're talking about there. That schematic right there. That schematic right there. See it? You can see it on your page. There's your schematic. All right, now what's that question? What was the question
That
again?
connection at connector C1045
Yeah.
could cause the speed signal to be intermittent. Technician B says that a bad connection at C222 might cause the speedometer not to work.
Okay, so where's C222?
I can't even find it. Well, not that I couldn't find it, I just can't read it.
Well, bottom there on the bottom left. See that? What do you think about that? Look how it's routed now. See that? C2 connector C222. See that? Now look at that, how it goes through that junction. See there? it goes to the gem module, it goes to the instrument cluster. If it goes to the instrument cluster and connection C222, is that gonna keep the, if it's a loose connection at C222, is that gonna keep the instrument cluster from getting a signal? How's it wired? Does the speed signal go into the instrument cluster go through C222?
Haven't done C222, letters are kinda small.
Well, it's over there on the, if you look on, if it's over the left side of the page, you see the gray-black wire? You see connector C242B, central junction box. On the very, on that, I may have to put it on the screen if y'all don't have it on your head. You should have it though, because it's the same thing I'm just looking at right
I
here.
have this schematic, but it's too small to read the,
Not that one. There's another one at the bottom. Look on your last page.
connector view.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right, let me pull it up on the screen because I didn't realize that wasn't up there. It's supposed to be, but it wasn't, I guess, so I'll pull it up. All right.
Some amputated machines.
Well, see, the thing about it is, what I printed should have that, and I don't know why I don't. Unless whenever the girl copied it, she didn't copy that last page or something. Because I actually have that copy. I mean, I attached this to it. You'll see it in a second. All right, now then. That's what I'm after, right there. You got it?
Alright, C222.
You see 222? Connector C222, right there. You got that? This is connector C222 right here. This is the speedometer. If I got a bad connection here, is it gonna affect that?
No,
Why?
because it's out of the loop for that thing.
Yeah, exactly. This comes actually, notice the anti-lock brake system module receives a signal from the sensor in the rear end, and it sends it out to the PCM, and it sends it out through this junction box to the overhead console module, to the generic electronic module, and to the speedometer. And it also goes to the speed control servo. See, this actually takes that signal and it aligns it, defines it, and sends it out to other things. So this right here, the C10, that's the first part, you know, referencing that question. So
Where's 1045 at?
1045's up here. See that? That's C1045. All right, so how did I refer to that in that question? You remember? Well, you read it a second
It
ago.
would cause intermittent,
If you got an intermittent connection right here.
speed
you're-
signal.
Yeah, you're gonna intermittent speed. Everything depends on this. And if you got a problem right here, then nothing down here is gonna get a speed signal. Your speedometer's not gonna work. And heck, your transmission's not even gonna shift if it's an electronic transmission. You got that? All right.
I had a fuse go out one time, and while my brother was going down the road, and it wouldn't let the transmission go out of second gear.
Well, that's what some of them will do. What some of them do, whenever you do that, is they'll take off in high gear or something. Where you been?
I had a eye doctor appointment yesterday and had to work.
What did they tell you?
I've been having irritated eyes all the time, and I don't know.
Looking at the computer
They
too.
just said try eye drop.
I'll tell you what it is, it's texting.
Yeah.
Gonna do
I
this.
think it's looking at that computer at work so much and going home and get on the computer.
So if you look away from the computer screen, like every 15 minutes to look away and just look around the room. Also at night, if it's dark inside and you're looking at a bright computer screen,
That's bad news.
it kind of fools with your eyes a little bit because your lenses want to be able to see out and about,
Yeah.
but your eyes are focused on the screen, and
All right.
I think it plays heck on.
All right, let's zip on through the rest of this thing right there. We ain't got a lot of time. Okay, why is it a good idea to set up the test light on a circuit being tested? If you manipulate the harnesses and you fixed it and you don't know that you fixed it, the test light's gonna tell you. If you set up a test light and say, oh, I'm checking this for power, you hook it to the ground, you set up your test light, don't spread the terminals or nothing, but you know what I'm talking about. Set it up so your test light will burn. And if I'm jacking around with the harnesses and I see that thing wink on, then I know I got some good stuff going on there. And so basically that's gonna be what? What's the answer to that question gonna be?
Manipulating the harness and connectors may cause the problem to temporarily evaporate.
That's A. All right, if the problem evaporates and you think you got it fixed, that's wrong. The differential speed sensor is hardwired to what?
Junction box.
The hydraulic control unit. That's what I showed you up on the schematic a while ago. Okay, number 6, technician A says if an electronic module has power and ground on the right pins, but won't communicate with the scan tool, the module must be bad. Technician B says when a circuit in question is being checked for an open, each connector on the circuit must be located and the connector pin in question must be examined. Who is right about that? That's B. Doesn't necessarily mean the module's bad. You know, it's easy to condemn a module, but it's really disappointing when you put one on there and it didn't fix it, you know, and that happens all the time. Technician A says all ABS wheel speed sensors generate AC voltage that increases in amplitude as the wheel speed increases. Okay, and technician B says most wheel speed sensors are Hall effect units. That's gonna be A only there, the reason for that, you
It'll
know.
have to be a one or the other.
Yeah. ABS wheel speed sensors generate an AC. Now, I will tell you that that's not true either. I mean, it says all, I wrote that question, and that's not a good way for that question to read, because not all of them do that. And I'm actually changing that on my master copy right here, right now, because like on Jimmy Hutto's Dodge Caravan, it puts out a digital signal, it's got a Hall effect. And it's basically a square wave, it's not a sine wave
AC
anymore.
you don't have AC Hall effect units, do you?
No. I mean, Hall effect units are all a digital on-off thing, you know. Technician A says all ABS systems communicate over a serial bus through the DLC. They don't. Technician B says rear anti-lock system codes can be read as flash-out codes using the ABS lamp, you know. So, there you go, that's B. And then here's a little research question here. Technician A says most pickups with 4-wheel ABS use 4 separate wheel speed sensors. Technician B says some GM trucks use the transmission output shaft sensor. Our GMC, it doesn't have wheel speed sensors in the back, it's just it's measuring the drive shaft, is all it's doing. And which is pretty interesting. You got 3 sensors instead of 4. Technician A says all ABS problems can be effectively diagnosed with a scan tool. Wrong. Technician B says all ABS problems can be effectively diagnosed without a scan tool. Neither one of those guys is right. There's some, a scan tool is not the end-all answer to everything, and I'll tell you something else, if that module won't talk, that scan tool's worthless as far as that kind of thing goes. So, just go figure on that. All right. That blew through that pretty quick, but it was a pretty good deal there. All right. It was, like I say, it's almost like a war story, so.